All right, everyone. I know there's still some people signing on, but in the interest of time, and we have a pretty stacked agenda. And people can hear me now. I just was double checking my mute and unmute and everything else. Good morning, everyone. And I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. And for those of you that are celebrating Hanukkah, I hope you're having a nice celebration over the next several days. It's been a while since we got together, since just before the summer. But we have a really fabulous guest presenter speaking shortly. And, we wanted to welcome you all to our Corporate Advisory Network meeting. We're still here. We're still navigating through this pandemic like everyone else. And we're doing it well. And we're doing it well because of the phenomenal staff who work with us on a day-to-day basis. Since we last met, our schools opened. Our staff have done a phenomenal job of getting our schools open for in-person instruction 5 days a week. Our community services programs are opening at full speed ahead, whether it be our individuals who you'll hear about later that we're supporting in New Frontier to secure employment or make social connections, to our residential programs and our day and pre-vocational programs. Nothing can't be done without looking through things in the eyes of COVID, and in that vein, like all of you and all of your employers and all of your families, it's all about keeping people safe. It's about getting people vaccinated. Is adhering to a variety of different policies. I think we have about 6 different policies that we're working under. But like you, it feels good to be able to begin to get out again. It feels good to be able to see people again. We were fortunate enough to have a gala, and we had it in person for the first time in over 2 years. And Samantha and Leela and Jack, our development team, really did a phenomenal job with some of you we were fortunate enough to see, PNC Bank and George Sturiale, one of our REs. And so it's sort of feeling like we're getting back to normal, or certainly learning how to live through this virus as it continues to morph into other things and raise anxieties, but we keep moving forward. And today's agenda is about moving forward in the same way that we as an organization have over the last several months and continue to be planning for the future. We're very excited about today's presentation. So I'm not going to speak more about Birch because I think you hear enough about it, and we'll continue talking about it later. We're very excited to have our guests today from PNC Financial Services. The PNC Financial Services has been doing some extraordinary work in the area of recruitment, in the area of diversity and inclusion, particularly for people with disabilities. We really wanted them to share some of the things that they're doing and some of the practices that they've been implementing, as some of you along the way have been looking at different things and trying different things. Our guest speakers today are Carmen Bruce. Carmen is the Vice President of Diversity and Recruiting Advisor, Vice President for Diversity Recruiting Advisor, Talent Solutions and Outreach. She supports the hiring initiatives related to people with disabilities, as well as those in the veterans community. She manages both the external partnership organizations and plays a role connecting potential candidates and recruiter with a hiring manager. We also have with us today Greg Pollack. He's the Vice President for Human Resources and Accessibility at PNC. He co-chairs the Pittsburgh Disability Inclusion Consortium and serves on the Board of Trustees for the Western Pennsylvania School for the Deaf, as well as the Epilepsy Association of Western and Central Pennsylvania. Under his leadership, PNC has been recognized by Disability and Inclusive as the 2019 Employer of the Year for its extraordinary policies, strategies, and initiatives that has really shown demonstrated progress in the areas of disability inclusiveness in the workplace and marketplace and supply chain. All that meaning is that PNC has been forward thinking in what they do and what they do to include people with disabilities at the table in hiring, in jobs that are meaningful and productive, and so that people with disabilities can lead a full life inclusive in all of their communities. So I'm going to be quiet now and turn it over to Carmen and Greg to present to us.
All right, let me share my screen one moment here. All right, can I get maybe a thumbs up to say that you can see our screen okay? It's always the scary part, right? Coming into the Zoom platform, it's like, is it gonna work? And it did. Okay, so I'm actually going to kick it right over to Greg to get us started. He'll introduce himself, and then I'll go into some of the work that we're doing with PNC Diversity Recruiting. But Greg, I'll kick it over to you.
Good. Thank you so much, Carmen. Good morning and happy Hanukkah for those of you who are celebrating. My name is Greg Pollack. I am the Accessibility Officer at PNC Financial Services, and I am extremely excited to be able to join you for a conversation about the work that we're doing to bring more people with disabilities to our workplace. I don't think I have to tell you the importance of what we're doing and bringing people with disabilities into the workplace. People with disabilities are changing the way we live and work every single day. And more Fortune 500 companies across the marketplace are now declaring disability inclusion a business imperative and are doubling down on the disability inclusion initiative. And the race is on. The most progressive movers have already shown up in the marketplace, and I'm extremely proud to talk a little bit about PNC because I firmly believe that PNC is one of these progressive movers that's thinking about how we can be more inclusive for people with disabilities in the workplace. Our team works almost every day to create these opportunities for people with disabilities, and I have the privilege of sharing a little bit about our progress and our strategy and the passion that goes into our work. I'm a firm believer that disability inclusion represents a critical milestone in the evolution of the business strategy and the maturity of a business and their readiness to serve a customer base that is comprised of people with disabilities. And I say that because we operate in a market now where accessibility and user experience now go hand in hand and are becoming increasingly critical in a company's strategy. And for every customer to achieve their goals, we need to be able to enable our customers to do so. And to make that happen, we have to clear the barriers that disrupt their experience. And that starts with our employees. And for our CEO, his name is Bill Demchak. He is extremely direct when it comes to his desire to build a culture where every individual is not just valued, but feels that they have something to contribute to the workplace. And the most valuable contribution an employee can offer us is the feedback. And we hire people because we want them to change us in ways that benefit the community that we serve. And we built a culture that embraces feedback, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And to be a truly accessible bank, we needed to hire the very same people that we want to serve at the end of the day. And once we hire them, we need to give them the tools to thrive and to be able to succeed in the workplace. And now we could just open our doors and do that and hire 100 people with disabilities and call it a day. But if you're a person with a disability, you know just as well as I do that hiring a person with a disability is only half of the battle. Maybe not even half, it could be step one. But getting hired is literally just a victory if the company has built a culture from the inside out that enabled people with disabilities to thrive. And that is exactly what my team's job is. In order for us to create a truly inclusive and accessible experience, we had to come up with some very real solutions. So just 3 years ago, we pulled together a group of 75 senior leaders from across the enterprise. And over the course of a 2-day summit, we asked them a very simple question. How do we make PNC a more accessible place to work and bank? And that team of 75 stakeholders came up with 4 possibilities that would eventually form the foundation to our entire strategy. And those possibilities are transforming the accommodation process, employing and retaining an untapped talent pool, advancing accessibility technology, and growing relationships with customers with disabilities. And you can see on the slide those 4 possibilities and how they transform into the 4 pillars that shape our strategy: accessibility, talent, technology enablement, and the customer experience. Accessibility focuses entirely on the end-to-end delivery of the accommodation process and the tools and resources that help our employees and customers to level the playing field for everyone, whether it is working from home or if it is receiving a larger monitor or receiving statements in Braille. Um, Requesting the accommodation should not be an arduous process for anybody. It should be very simple and streamlined. You request it, you get it, right? And they learn the time and past the experience for individuals. So that put us specifically into mitigating and streamlining that experience. And talent is straightforward. It's how we attract, develop, and retain our employees with disability. And Carmen is going to speak to this in just a few minutes, but our recruiting team partner with several colleges, conferences, and they are consistently searching for the talent that we need to diversify our workforce. And the third one is technology enablement. Technology is all about prioritizing accessibility and how we not only implement technology, but how do we identify and invest in innovative technology solutions and vendors that help us to make PNC stand out against our competition. And last but not least, the customer experience is all about transforming the way customers interact with our bank. It looks at how customers are interacting with PNC, whether they walk into a branch, call the care center, or use an ATM. There's literally a team here called Retail Transformation, and their job is to navigate life from the eyes of a customer and to experience PNC from a customer standpoint, and that includes customers with disabilities, and they are all about partnering with technology companies to build accessibility into the branch of the future. So that is the foundation of our entire strategy, and we've built our focus around that. And if you can't tell from this model, we're not just about adding ramps and elevators, but rather we're thinking about how to create a truly personalized and meaningful experience that allows everyone to experience PNC without their disability showing up in that experience. And obviously, each of these pillars are interdependent. You can't have accessibility without technology. You can't have technology without the talent to back it up. And without the talent, you can't have a great customer experience. So all of these shape our company culture and determine how ready we are to be the employer and the bank of choice for people with disabilities. So we collaborate with partners all across the enterprise to define what those outcomes are and how they tie back to each of these pillars. And we want to integrate very practical steps toward achieving those objectives that we created. And because those 75 senior leaders were across the enterprise really helped us to frame these 4 pillars, that means that over 75 different businesses within our bank are also committed to trying to create a more accessible experience. Now, getting here was not an easy process, but it was a no-brainer. When I first started with PNC, I sat down across from Bill, our CEO, and we were talking through the accessibility strategy and where we were hoping for our company to go. And at one point, I asked him, what's the most important part of this experience to you, Bill? And he said, Greg, I want to hire 100 people with disabilities tomorrow. And he was so serious about it. He was so intentional that you could just tell he meant it. And I'm looking at him thinking, you want this done tomorrow. And naturally, we knew what he really meant was as soon as possible. But he goes on to say, and I don't just want to hire them. I want it to be sustainable. They need meaningful careers, and I want to know what I need to do to make that happen. So I go back to our head of diversity recruiting at the time, and the first thing I say is, Bill wants to hire people with disabilities tomorrow. How do we make this happen? And we literally just jumped on the phone, opened up a PowerPoint slide, and started building out the game plan. And that was 3.5 years ago. In just 3.5 years, we've had a lot of people working to make that magic happen. And those people who are invested in this process, as Carmen is going to share with you, have made an incredible amount of progress. disability hiring is up at PNC, self-identification numbers are up, and we were named Employee of the Year by Disability in 2019. In our flagship disability training program, which we built from the ground up, is nationally recognized with over 8 awards. And thanks to the diversity recruiting team, we have more strategic partners than we've ever had before. And that's really important to us because as the recruiting strategy continues to evolve year after year, we continue to capitalize upon the great talent that in the partnership that come into this organization and the race for disability and talent. And again, this is really critical to us because we have a company that's built on feedback. And as these employees join the company, we start soliciting them for their thoughts, their feelings, and how they navigate a lifestyle with their disabilities. And we have learned so much from some of the tips and tricks that they've shared with us to help us incorporate that into our banking model and our customer experience in our approach to interacting with customers. And it has been a truly transformative process. But now, as we're focused just on the recruitment aspect of it, Carmen is going to give you a glimpse of our talent strategy, the work, and how it all comes together to make our company one of the more progressive leaders in the recruitment and hiring of people with disabilities in the marketplace. So with that, I'm going to go back to Carmen, and as she takes you through the talent strategy, I will be here with you to field any questions towards the end. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them after Carmen's part. Audio, Carmen.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. So great to meet everyone. Again, my name is Carmen Bruce. I am a member of the diversity recruiting team here at PNC. I've been here for a little over 4 years now. Began my career at PNC in the brick and mortar retail space. So I was a retail banking bench candidate. This was a fast track management program that taught all things banking. And then after graduating from that program, I was placed as a manager in one of our banking centers in the city of Pittsburgh. And I spent about 18 months there. An opportunity in diversity recruiting opened up, which I was so excited about. I had been recruiting most of my professional career. I was working as a college basketball coach. I was recruiting female student athletes to 2 local universities in the city of Pittsburgh. So when you talk about building relationships, making connections, some of the important factors that go into getting folks on board, whatever it is that you're recruiting for, that's a huge part of it. So really excited for the opportunity to be at PNC and doing something I love the most, and that's giving candidates a glimpse into what could be their possible forever career. So I'll be sharing, like Greg mentioned, more about the overall strategy around the diversity recruiting team. I'm hopeful that this is going to resonate with the folks that are on the call, the members here of the advisory network. But again, we're so excited to be here this morning and really pumped that advisory networks such as this one are available to support the Disabilities Hiring Initiative. So with that in mind, just to provide some context, so our team at Diversity Recruiting, we sit on the same team as Greg in Talent Solutions and Outreach. We are a specialty recruitment arm of human resources talent acquisition. So our team focuses on increasing the diverse external talent pool in support of enterprise-wide talent needs. So our team connects to identify individuals that are in the Asian American community, African American community, women or gender initiatives, Latinx community, LGBTQ, veteran, and of course, persons with disabilities. So when you talk about the strategy, our team essentially plays the role of connector between the candidate and the recruiter or the hiring manager. And often we just kind of consult, both parties on best fit opportunities. So it starts with our manager. She'll connect with the various lines of business, the recruiting managers there internally. They'll decide around the business recruiting need. And then we as the advisor or the specialist on the team, we execute on the approach. So we'll work to source the talent that fits the business need once it's shared with us. So in its broadest sense, we could be having in-depth conversations with candidates on an area of interest within a particular line of business, or sharing the business case for hiring diverse talent with a recruiter or a manager. And then of course, we work hard to attract the talent, like Greg mentioned, through our national and regional partnerships. Some of the different recruiting outreach efforts that I'll talk through are campaigns, attendance at recruitment and development conferences, And then also some of the work that we've done internally, hosting exclusive PNC events like lunch and learn presentations during specific awareness and heritage months. Greg and I were a part of a few during October's National Disability Employment Awareness Month. But the easiest way to think of our team is just another resource to help source talent for the roles our internal recruitment teams are looking for, almost like another lever that they can pull for assistance. So then how do we attract the talent in the disability space specifically? So a big part of our strategy is the connection with our internal and external partnership organizations. And I want to spend just a little time explaining some of the best practices for each, beginning with what we do internally. So as mentioned, we line up the recruiting need that the business shares, and we go out and we find the talent. So we do a few things along the way, to ensure that we're aligned appropriately. Each recruitment team has their own team agile meeting that the specialist or the advisor from our group will attend. So we'll walk through candidates that we've met, just like the candidate share that we'll do here later on within the network. And then we make sure that the candidates that we've met or are sourcing align to the position that the recruiter wants to fill. So if we do find a potential match, we'll set up an exploratory conversation with the candidate and the recruiter to make sure that they're not only interested in the opportunity, but they have insight into PNC, the organization, the total compensation package, the role itself, everything to prepare them for the interview, everything that you can't find in the job description on a web page. We're like personalizing or customizing the experience. So, we know it's pretty evident on a resume whether a candidate can do the job, but at PNC, we want to make sure that it's a mutually beneficial opportunity. So that goes from the very first conversation that's had between a candidate and their recruiter. And I'll just share a quick best practice story, and that's been with our customer care center. So as we all know, the work from home life situation took us by storm with COVID. Many of our diverse candidates that identify with disabilities are interested in the work from home positions. So we partner with our customer care center, which offers remote positions, and then a local partner in the disability space out of Ohio. And we held various interview days with them. We onboarded quite a few of their candidates because of the strategy around getting customer care roles filled, with individuals that were looking for this specific opportunity. We even include our recruiters on monthly touch bases that we have with the external partner to make sure that we're continuing to stay aligned. So our recruiters really end up becoming almost like honorary diversity champions, and are helping us continue to do the work every day. Another best practice, and this is to really make sure that we're following the process and providing resources to our recruiters and the candidates along the way. Our team created an accessibility hiring guide. So this guide is a one-stop shop for our recruiters and hiring managers to assist along the process with candidates that identify with disabilities. So a couple parts to the guide. We put in a ton of resources for both the recruiters and the hiring managers to help them deliver a smooth conversation to candidates with disabilities. All of them are embedded right in the guide. They're on a hyperlink on the PDF, so the recruiter can click right into it and get some more information, direct them right to the resources website. We have Greg's Accessibility Hub linked. We have our diversity recruiting page linked. We've got the Job Accommodation Network, or the JAN site, which I'm sure most on the call are familiar with. We've got that linked. So again, one-stop shop for recruiters to have the information that they need to provide that experience to the client, to the candidate, right in front of them. And then we also provided within the guide general did you know bullet point information. So this would support the business case for hiring individuals with disabilities. Information that a recruiter can go back to the hiring manager and say, hey, you know what? Here's what PNC is doing in this space to support disabilities. Let's get on board. Let's get this candidate going here. And it makes them be, it's credible information that they can share and build their brand when they're talking to the hiring manager. And then the focal point of the guide, it's the process for the recruiters and hiring managers with regards to the interview process. So we've included best practices for our talent partners. I think with many organizations, the first connection to a candidate is the recruiter. And typically that's the person that's going to talk about the inclusive culture and what you're able to offer them. So this guide is meant to help a recruiter become more comfortable and not only sharing the PNC culture, but also incorporating information about our approach to accessibility at PNC. And then we finish out the guide with all of our call to actions, kind of bringing it all together, really showing how important it is for all of us, recruiters, those within the line of business, anyone connected to the Disabilities Hiring Initiative, to do their part to ensure that we're creating an inclusive culture and doing what we can to hire individuals that identify with disabilities. So lots of great work that we're doing with our internal partners, and then also making sure that they're set up for success. So within diversity recruiting, we don't cover requisitions ourselves. So I wouldn't have a job for a candidate to apply to. That's the talent team. So it's so important for us to have that great relationship with them, that great partnership with them, so that everyone understands and appreciates the business case for hiring in this space. And then when it comes to the work that's being done externally, in this segment, I know Greg mentioned this is like only about 3.5 years in the making. So because of that, our efforts are very grassroots. So we do partner with national organizations, but we focus lots of our efforts around regional organizations and regional partnerships, very, very similar to Birch Family. So for us, it's all about the partnerships that we have in and outside of the bank. Every year we partner with the AAPD in support of some of the work that they do during the month of October, especially with Disability Mentoring Week. So back on October 20th, in coordination with the AAPD, we hosted our second virtual Disability Mentoring Day, or DMD. And again, some on the line may be familiar there, but DMD is a large-scale national effort to promote career development for students and job seekers. We had PNC employees spend the morning with local school virtually, and our reps served as panelists, mentors, keynote speakers, discussing the power of mentorship, preparation, networking, and self-advocacy. And then we took the event on the road when we went to our school partners at Western PA School for the Deaf, and we did an in-person Disability Mentor Day. And then we also have an in-person program that we're going to run for Western PA School for the Blind that will be next week, actually. And then we work with a few partners that support, entry point talent or opportunities that may not require a college degree. These organizations have training and leadership academies where we'll connect with the talent. We'll do mock interview sessions, resume review workshops. We're kind of like building the pipeline for this talent. We work with organizations that specialize in neurodiverse hiring initiatives. And these groups source talent in the space, but then also help with the retaining of professionals on the autism spectrum. So they provide education and training to the company, so does PNC, but then also provide employment support to the candidate and recruiting best practices to ensure that candidates with autism are supported throughout the entire recruitment process on through onboarding. And then we partner with local vocational rehab organizations that are regionally focused. Organizations that connect the talent, again, across various lines of business. And we've seen, like I mentioned before, some success in our customer care and customer facing environments. And then to conclude on partnerships, we have a great relationship with our Wounded Warriors Project organization, which connects PNC to talent in the post 9/11 veteran community. So some of these individuals identify with physical disabilities, post-traumatic stress disorder, or vision or hearing loss. We work with their team during virtual career fairs. We've done virtual webinars. Maybe we'll be back in person at some point, but it allows us the opportunity to see some intersectionality between the veteran hiring space and then those that identify with disabilities as well. So, each year in diversity recruiting, as Greg mentioned, we're constantly vetting organizations, looking to expand on relationships that we have with our partnership organizations that are going to help source the talent in the disability space. There's so many great organizations out there, and I don't know if we would be able to do the work that we're doing at PNC without them. Really appreciate what they stand for in their initiatives, and we always make sure that they meet the mission, vision, culture, values of PNC when we bring them on board. And then a great part to kind of bring it back to the internal connection, we'll also see a lot of referrals that come through PNC employees. So there may be, someone working in the branch system or someone working back office who may have a son or daughter that's connected to a disabilities focused organization. They refer them over to diversity recruiting team. We begin the sourcing partnership. It's a great process, because then we've got internal folks that are on board that know that we're trying to hire in this space. They offer up a great referral, and then we can continue the process with them. It's really something that just is a well-oiled machine at this point when we get our referrals. And then I did want to just really quickly share a national partnership organization that we're working with, and that's Disability In. To provide a little background for those online that aren't familiar with Disability In, They are the leading nonprofit resource for business disability inclusion worldwide. They've got a group, a network of over 270 corporate partners, and they run a huge conference every summer. We've attended the past 2 virtually, and they had about 250 speakers, close to 4,000 attendees, 50 plus sessions that were focusing on different tracks. We took home some really great best practices around presenting to individuals that identify with disabilities. One of the best practices was providing descriptors of yourself during a presentation. So, hi, my name is Carmen Bruce. I'm a Black woman using pronouns she, her, hers. I have short curly hair and wear dark blue glasses rimmed in black. By providing descriptors of ourselves during the beginning of a presentation, we allow our colleagues or those that are attending a presentation that identify as blind, low vision to have context and better engagement with those that are speaking. And like Greg mentioned, providing that inclusive culture. And then also, of course, sharing pronouns if comfortable also ensures that we're using inclusive language. And then we also learned during the conference to better support intersectionality. So I mentioned that we work with the Wounded Warriors Project and how there's great intersectionality between the disability space and how it, kind of crosses over to all segments. And we can collaborate and take opportunities to connect with other segments using disability kind of as the bridge. And then when we debriefed as a team on the final day of the conference, we also felt that one overlying theme was the power of storytelling. How impactful it is for individuals to share their story, share their journey, and how doing so opens the doors for others to share their story and advocate for themselves along the way. So that's one of our larger partnership organizations that we're working with. And then I'll loop together the last 2 best practices here on the screen and share that connections that we make with our talent really goes a long way. And that is why we provide what we call the white glove treatment. So the talent that we meet, whether it's through a recruitment event, an internal referral, or however we are getting the talent on board, we're going to do our best to help them through the entire process. So we start off having a conversation, to discuss what the best fit may be. We share their contact with the recruiter, and then if they might need support with their resume or interview tips and tricks, we're going to provide that as well. We just want to make sure that we're there to support them in whatever capacity they need the support. You just never know how a candidate coming on board the bank will become a referral source moving forward. The same goes with our partnership organizations that we work with. Once we find an organization, it becomes a pipeline of talent moving forward. That's one of the best ways that we drive talent to the bank. So that kind of just sums up in very quick nutshell, some bullet points around what we're doing in diversity recruiting. It is an incredible place to be. I know a lot of times when folks ask, what is it that you do for a living? I said, well, I get to talk to candidates every day and maybe help them, find their future career and come onto the bank. And it sounds so easy, but we are building relationships. We're sharing stories. We're providing resources that folks may not have access to. And in a lot of ways, we're changing lives. So to see how many folks are on the call here for the advisory network and knowing that there's so much support out there, it kind of gives me chills to know that every candidate out there is getting the support that they need by those on the line here. And I'm glad that PNC is one of those. So Greg and I, again, are so excited to be here this morning. If you have any questions, about the presentation or about some of the work that we're doing at PNC, we'd be happy to answer them. But we are so thankful to be here with the network and really thankful to the group for having us.
Thank you, Carmen and Greg, for a great presentation. I think I'm echoing. Am I echoing? Okay, it stopped. Anyway, if anybody has any questions, you can certainly feel free to raise your hand or vocally say it, or if you feel more comfortable putting in the chat room, we'll be monitoring that as well. So this way you'll be able to get it. What the both of you presented, there's an abundance of information that you provided. And I think that there are, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm trying to see, can you see my face? I'll get into position so you can see me, since they just put me on full screen here. There are a lot of things that that you mentioned that are critical. And I think you should be so proud of some of the accomplishments that you've achieved in just 3.5 years. Let me just say that, because I think the guests, we have a little over 40 people on the 40 people on today's workshop. And I think all of us are in varying different stages. Some of us are working with individuals who are trying to secure employment. Some of us are employers trying to bring these concepts of diversity and inclusion and accessibility to their companies and figuring out how do you partner. And some are actually partnering with trying to make it, and I think, Greg, you said this, the personalized experience, that when you talked about the accessibility should be like a no-brainer and that it should be personalized and it should be in a way that makes somebody feel welcome. That's a culture shift when you're looking at potential employees or potential talent that you're looking to bring in. But it's also something that that is critical when you go to the other side of the customer service experience, because the word of mouth begins to pass things around in terms of how we can work together on this. I'm using a lot of this just in reflecting on some of the things that you all said, but can you tell, my first question is, can you tell us a little bit about how you got the buy-in? I know you started with 75 people in terms of that and beginning to come together, but if you can talk a little bit to the experience of buy-in, and then also the experience of separating out the recruiting and hiring to the talent acquisition and the role that, Carmen, you're playing and how your team is working with that, because some companies are probably looking at something similar.
Absolutely, I'll be more than happy to do that. Thanks for the question, Matthew. That was the trick at the very beginning. Trying to help people reframe their mindset. I think people who don't have disabilities on a day-to-day basis take things for granted until they don't have those things anymore, and then they're gone, and then they see the value in what existed, right? So you reframe the accessibility not necessarily about, like I said, building ramps or automatic doors, and shifting that paradigm from an accommodation to a very innovative feature that's provided. I'm going to use the artificial intelligence captioning that we're using right here on the Zoom session. Love that, by the way. Closed captioning was not something that had been used widely until about 1963, and it wasn't even commoditized until much later. But how many of us now are using captioning on TV? How many of us now are text messaging? Nobody was text messaging back when phones first came out, and text messaging is now the most practical, commoditized way to communicate. Most people are offended now if you pick up the phone and call them without texting them first to let them know that, hey, I need to call you. Are you available for a phone call? Back then, things were so different. So when you frame innovation in that way, and frame it in a way of making sure that the user experience is a holistically inclusive one, then you are, as a result, being forward thinking, you are being progressive, you are thinking about products and experiences that are eventually going to blow up and impact the quality of the way people view your company. So when upfront, we asked the question, how do we become a more accessible bank? What we were really asking is, how do we make sure every product or service is inclusive of everyone and can interact and benefit everyone that is interacting with that product experience? No one is going to disagree with the value of creating a product and service that encompasses everyone and also impacts the world's largest market, or the world's most rapidly increased the market, because 10 years ago, 1 in 5 people had a disability. And now 1 in 4 people have a disability in the United States. So when you frame conversation in a way that really helps people to realize that accessibility needs to be built into the product and service, and by doing so can result in a far more innovative product or an innovative experience, you'll be hard-pressed to find somebody that's not willing to go the extra mile. Because right now, what we have is such an innovative marketplace. Technology is exploding rapidly. And new products and services that are coming out every day that are just blowing us out of the water. But if you really look at what those products and services are doing, they're really solving for accessibility. Amazon made it so that you never have to walk into a store or interact with people in a store. They made it so that you can shop at a click of a button. Apple, for instance, has made it easier to not only talk to people, but also walk around with a calculator and all the tools and resources that you need in order to interact with people. And now it's becoming an accessibility device. You know, I can walk around and somebody can speak to me and it'll show up on my phone in the form of text. Or if you look at Uber, Uber has solved the transportation challenge for many people who are unable to drive their own vehicles and didn't want to have to wait for a bus or public transportation to make their commute. It made the commute more convenient. So if you really look at the root of the product in those most successful companies today, they're solving for accessibility problems, right? They're solving for accessibility gaps. So if you go up to a leader and you give them that message and that perspective and reframe their mindset that accessibility is not about accommodating people with disability, but changing the quality of people's lives, they're going to be bought into it from the beginning. And again, that was kind of how we at PNC approached it. We said to a bunch of senior leaders, do we want to be an accessible company? Or do we want to continue down the path of status quo and continue to bolt accessibility on after the fact, like so many of our competitors are doing? Or do we want to really lead by creating accessible experiences from the beginning, so we're not paying people to go back to the same product over again and trying to remediate some of those barriers that were a part of the initial rollout. And I think as people realize the value of focusing on accessibility from the beginning, it just makes sense to be as accessible as possible from the beginning as opposed to after the fact.
You know, you raise an important point, and what you've done in your presentation, and even speaking again, you've moved beyond the concept of accommodation. You know, it became a law, and we have to follow the law. But really, you took it to really more the concept of what's really the intention behind it. The intention behind it is really about access. It's not about accommodation, it's about access. And if I modify that in a way that it's meaningful for a person, but it also makes it manageable and accessible for other people to be engaged, to be involved, that takes it one step further when you talk about intent and impact. Carmen was speaking earlier about learning and realizing it's important to say, I'm a female. Well, no, I'm not a female. I'm a male. I have gray hair. I'm only 25. But my pronouns are he and him. All of that is about intent and impact, about inclusivity. And it's just changing the message in a way. And when you talk about a personalized experience, a lot of what we have done in our work at Birch and other places that are working towards employment is really talking about the concept of customized employment. What's the talent that we have of the people seeking work? And building upon that, is there a way we can work with you as a corporate partner to find a place for that person to be successful and to tap into their strengths? We use the concept of personalized or person-centered or customized employment in terms of that. Carmen, I was going to, because you wanted to say something.
You hit the nail on the head. And I think, going to the recruiting component, it's pretty simple. We're a customer facing bank. Like that's what we do. That's our primary business. So if we're working with clients, like Greg mentioned, 1 in 4 individuals identify with disabilities. We know that it's 2021. Like we have a focus on the trend in Black America and Asian American candidates. The thing is if those are our clients, if those are the people that we're serving, we need to make sure that when they walk through the doors of a bank, they're represented and they feel like they can sit down next to someone who represents them. So if we don't have that representation at the bank, then we're not doing our part. That's how we think about it in diversity recruiting, is we've got to bring the folks on board that are going to be able to serve our clientele, because that's what we are in the financial services industry.
2 last things, and then we have to move on in the interest of time. One is, I just want to acknowledge Christina Rajema, who put in the chat room that as a person with a disability. I'm drawing inspiration from the work being done in the area of disability recruitment in places like yours. So thank you. And she acknowledges the power of storytelling. And her question is, and we'll let her have the last question, about what % of your diversity recruiting team is made up of people with disabilities, so it's helping to foster a concept of inclusion for that group. That's the last question.
So oh, go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to ask Carmen if you wanted to answer that.
Yeah, one thing I failed to mention, and it's a huge part of what we do, a lot of the work that we have going on is in support of our individuals here at the bank that identify with disabilities. So we have a huge resource group. It's called PNC Enable. And it's a group that empowers individuals that may have disabilities, identify in that space, or are allies of. And so we work very closely with that resource group when we are going to recruitment events, when we are, having candidate conversations, so that we make sure that there's representation there. I think across the board, we can take a look at metrics, we can take a look at numbers, but again, we have the buy-in from the folks that I mentioned before about like an employee referral. We've got that buy-in. So if that individual knows that diversity recruiting is, bringing someone on board that identifies in a particular space, we'll make sure that that individual sees through the process as well, that they're a part of that candidate conversation. So it's a big part of what we do and how we're able to source the talent.
Thank you so much.
I want to piggyback what Carmen said, if you don't mind, really quickly, Matthew. Okay. So to Carmen's point, PNC cannot explicitly point at people and say, do you have a disability or not? Do you have a disability or not? So we don't know specifically, how many people with disabilities we have in different lines of businesses. And I think that's a very important part of creating a company culture where we don't want people to feel like PNC is going to try to figure out your PII, personally identifiable information. However, to Carmen's point, we do and make sure that we put different lines of businesses in front of different advisory groups, people with different disabilities. And Carmen was just talking about a advisory group that they sit down with typically around 3 or 4 times a year, where we talk with different disability segments and share our projects with them and what we do, and they advise us on how we can be improving some of those interactions and experiences. So there might be a lot of recruiters with disabilities, there might be very few recruiters with disabilities, but they are still getting the counsel from a group of employees that is helping them to navigate that experience from the lens of that disability constituency.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Greg, Carmen, thank you so much for being here today. Just so everyone knows, we will be sharing your contact. We'll be sharing Greg and Carmen's contact information with you and you with them. That's okay. And this way you'll be able to keep the message going, and we'll continue these dialogues. We find these presentations and we hope they're helpful in terms of what we're trying to achieve here. Moving right along, and in the interest of time, I just want to let people know that you'll get a copy of the stuff that's been shared today as a follow-up. And one of the things we'll be sending in the email will be a 4-minute video, which we're not going to show you today in the interest of time, related to our partnership with TD Bank. TD Bank has been a great partner with us in a variety of different ways. And through their relationship with ABC7, they were able to work with us on the creation of a video promoting the work of Birch. In the interest of time, we won't do that, but you'll get a copy and a link to that you can look at your leisure. Up next, I'd like to introduce Ludovica Alcorn, our employment specialist manager, who has been working on helping some of our individuals get work. She's been working with us for a number of years. She's over 10 years in the field, recently completed her master's degree in social work, and has really led the charge as it relates to helping people get jobs. So Ludovica, over to you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. For those that are new, the New Frontier program at Birch provides unique work readiness services that allows adults with autism and other developmental disabilities to continue their educational journey and develop the skills necessary to maintain long-term employment and increased independence. The program takes a strengths-based, person-centered approach and helps members to really recognize and maximize their strengths to achieve their goals. We pride ourselves on engaging in collaborative partnerships between employee and employers so that the needs of both parties are met while making strides towards genuine diversity and inclusion efforts in the workplace. So a little on our recent partnerships. We had 3 members placed with a few of our corporate partners, Learning Spring School, Job Path, and Amazon, and they've been thriving. We've been meeting and sharing excellent job candidates with Carmen at PNC Bank, Anthony at CAI, and both George and Rob at TD Bank. We're working closely with PNC Bank to establish a customized financial mastery series starting in January, which is very exciting. And a professional development event with Cordet is also in the works. And lastly, we're working with other agencies like ours, that's the Corporate Source and Job Path, to offer different training and employment opportunities to our program members. And now I'd like to provide just a few New Frontier program updates since we met in June. So 5 members have been offered positions and will start in the new year, another very exciting development. 2 members are enrolled in training programs that will grant them the certifications needed for their chosen field. So we have someone in an extensive culinary training to get their food handler's license, and another person taking a CompTIA course for IT. So we currently have 40 New Frontier members actively looking for work in some of the areas listed here. These job seekers have the skills, the qualifications, and motivation to jump into entry-level work. And I can't stress enough what an amazing talent pool we work with. And just to give a sense of the program scope, in addition to finding job seekers work, we also consistently support members who are gainfully employed. And I thought it important to mention that we currently have 14 individuals awaiting approval to enroll in the New Frontier program. And that number continues to grow now that vocational rehabilitation services are processing more people, and folks are, wanting additional supports, re-entering the workforce or entering the workforce for the first time after the height of the pandemic. And, there has been an influx in program enrollees, creating a need for more positions, internships, shadowing opportunities. Staff are also actively pursuing, more customized employment opportunities. And so we've talked about this before, but that's really understanding where a business's needs aren't being met through informational interviews, and then pairing them with our candidates' strengths and interests. So my favorite part, I wanted to take a minute to spotlight a few super talented New Frontier job seekers. And again, I won't do them justice, but so the first is Dennis. He's seeking work in either an artistic capacity or a stock work capacity, where he can utilize his innate thoughtfulness and strong work ethic. He's reliable through and through. We have Cassine, who's seeking work in the hospitality industry. He has a knack for connecting with people and ensuring their needs are met. He's lovely and prides himself on doing a job well done. And then we have Jonathan, who has a master's in history, public policy, international affairs from Georgetown University, and is seeking work in writing, media relations, marketing, publication, public affairs, you name it. He's bright, personable, and would make a great addition to any team. And lastly, we have Zamir. He has a bachelor's degree in accounting and extensive experience in the sports journalism world. He's a quick study, super personable, very flexible, and is ready for entry-level accounting work. Now, if folks on this call feel that they have any unmet needs at their organization, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. We have many more extremely qualified candidates with unique skill sets, and positive attitudes, seeking their next opportunity. And New Frontier staff are truly excited to connect with all of you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ludovica. Okay, it's 12 noon. We said we'd finish at noon and we will. 3 quick things, so maybe it'll be 12:01. Number one, Leli, I want to thank Leli for organizing and putting this event together. Leli will also be sending to you a copy of our new Corporate Advisory Network brochure. We're sharing it with you because we need your help. And what I mean by that is we would like you, if you find that both these workshops, but also we're committed to helping the people that we support find jobs, like the people that Ludovica spoke about this morning, we'd like you to broaden the network and invite them to join us at our next meeting. But more importantly, maybe introduce us to them, either through Leli or Ludovica, be able to form an introduction so that we can talk about what those employment opportunities might be or how we might be able to partner together, and maybe have them join the next meeting. If everybody here today brought one guest to the next meeting, we'd be up to 80 people. I know we had about 60 people registered, but we all know things happen at the last minute. We think the new brochure explains very well and succinctly what we're trying to achieve, and so we hope you'll join us in trying to be able to do that. Number two, it's the holiday season, and I want to wish all of you and your families a healthy, happy, and peaceful and celebratory holiday. I hope that you're safe, and I hope you get to enjoy this time of year with your loved ones. In that vein, we also are in the process, we internally are working with families that we support and the individuals in our programs who are in need of supports and services. So if you feel inclined to support us during that vein, if you reach out to us, you'll be able to do that. And so keep that in mind. And finally, as we move into the new year, we'll be looking at other ways to engage. We've been doing a lot of things virtually, which I think has been very, very helpful. I think, we've started to do some in-person things. So we'll look at seeing if there may be opportunities that afford us to do that in 2022. But also if there are particular topics of interest or things that you want to learn more about, or things that we should be having on our discussion here at our meetings, let us know. Let Leli know so that this way we'll be able to do that. Did I cover it all, Samantha? I'm getting the nod, so I did it all, and it's 12:02. So anyway, thank you all very much for joining us this morning. Happy holidays to all of you, and here's to a healthy and happy 2022. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.